The planet Ziller glimmered beneath the twin suns. Its surface a strange mix of deep blue oceans, glowing forests, and jagged crystal mountains. From orbit, it looked peaceful, almost inviting. But for those who walked its surface, Zillar was a land of challenges. The air was rich with oxygen, but it carried subtle currents of energy that could disrupt unprepared technology. Lyra adjusted the small visor on her helmet as she stepped off the hover platform, her four-legged transport landing softly behind her. She had always loved exploring the uncharted regions of her planet, but today was different. Something, or rather someone, had arrived from the stars. The Alien Council had detected an unknown spacecraft entering Ziller's orbit. Its signature did not match any known species, but preliminary scans suggested it was biological in nature. Lyra's curiosity had won over caution, as usual. She had volunteered to be the first to meet this mysterious visitor. Her eyes scanned the landing site, a wide plateau near a crystalline forest. The ship had already landed, its metallic hull reflecting the sunlight like liquid silver. It was small and oddly shaped, unlike any vessel the aliens had designed. Smooth curves and a strange light emanating from its engines made it appear almost alive. And then she saw him. A figure was emerging from the ship's entrance. Lyra froze for a heartbeat. The being was tall but fragile-looking, with pale skin and dark eyes that blinked under the bright sunlight. He moved carefully, as if he were trying to balance between confidence and caution. He carried nothing, only his own body, which already seemed out of place on this alien world. Lyra's first thought was that he was weak. Her people were physically stronger, faster, and more resilient. She had been trained to handle dangerous creatures and harsh climates since childhood. This human seemed ordinary at best. But there was something else, something that made her pause. When their eyes met, a strange sensation ran through Lyra. She had seen many species, many faces, and many minds. Yet the depth in his dark eyes, the quiet steadiness, made her heart skip. It was subtle, almost invisible to others. But she sensed that he was not just what he appeared to be. The human raised a hand in greeting. Lyra mirrored him, careful but curious. "Hello," he said in a soft, even voice. His accent was strange, rolling differently over the vowels. Lyra tilted her head. "You speak," she said. "That is, rare for visitors?" "I am Captain Elias," he replied. "I come in peace. I don't know your species, but I mean no harm." Lyra studied him. His honesty was clear, unpolished but sincere. It was not unusual for visitors to lie or exaggerate their intentions, but Elias seemed different. She decided to lead him away from the landing site, to a small clearing where she could examine him safely. "Follow me," she instructed. Her voice was calm but authoritative. As they walked, Lyra observed him closely. His movements were slower than hers, less precise, but there was a kind of determination in the way he held himself. He did not flinch at the alien energy currents that brushed against his body. Instead, he adapted, taking careful steps, adjusting his pace. Lyra's mind raced with questions. Humans were rare in this galaxy. Most intelligent species relied on advanced technology and natural abilities. Humans, by contrast, were fragile but inventive. They survived in worlds that should have destroyed them. Perhaps this was why she felt that spark in his eyes, the spark of resilience. "Why did you come here?" Lyra asked. Elias hesitated. We were exploring. My crew and I. Something went wrong with the engines. I don't know if we can leave." Lyra nodded slowly. Engine failures were common among untested species, especially those who traveled far from their home worlds. But she noticed that he did not panic. Even in an unknown world, facing unknown dangers, he remained calm. "That is unusual," she said softly. "Most would be afraid." "I have to survive," he said simply. "And I have to help anyone I can." Lyra blinked. His words carried weight. Not only did he think of himself, but also of others, known others like her. That combination of calm and empathy was rare. Even among aliens, They reached a small clearing where the grass glowed faintly under Ziller's sunlight. Lyra gestured for him to sit, and he complied. She activated a small scanning device, which hovered near his head, mapping his physiology. "You are human," she said, almost to herself. "Physically weak, yet your body adapts quickly. In your brain, different patterns, unusual resilience. You may be fragile, but your mind is." Strong Elias tilted his head. "I don't understand. Are you saying humans are dangerous?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Dangerous? Perhaps not in the way you think. You are unpredictable. That is what makes you interesting." Elias studied her, clearly puzzled. He had faced dangers before, but no one had ever described him like this. "Interesting?" he asked. "Yes," Lyra said. "Most species rely on strength, speed, or control. Humans rely on something else. Instinct, courage, emotion, and it shows." The words felt strange to him, but not unwelcome. He had always known humans were not the strongest. But perhaps that was not the point. A sudden noise interrupted their conversation. A distant roar echoing through the crystal forests. Lyra stiffened. Ziller's wildlife was dangerous, especially the large predators that hunted in the plains. They were fast, intelligent, and territorial. Elias stood slowly, eyes scanning the horizon. "Do we run?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "We do not run from danger. We study it. We survive it." She led him toward a higher ridge, giving them a better view of the plains. The roar came again, closer this time. A shadow moved between the trees, a creature with multiple limbs and glowing eyes, its body covered in iridescent scales. Lyra's instincts went on high alert, but she noticed Elias did not flinch. He looked at the creature, then at her, and nodded. "You can handle it?" she asked. "I can try," he said. With a hint of a smile, Lyra realized that humans had a way of facing danger that was different from her people. They did not rely solely on strength or speed. They observed, adapted, and acted with courage that surprised even the most experienced aliens. The creature charged, and Lyra leapt forward, her limbs moving with precision and grace. But Elias stayed behind the ridge, thinking quickly. He picked up a piece of debris, a fallen branch, and created a simple trap. Using the creature's own momentum against it, Lyra watched in amazement as the predator stumbled into the trap, giving them time to retreat safely. You used your mind," Lyra said breathlessly. "Not your strength," Leah shrugged. "That is how humans survive. We are not the fastest. We are not the strongest. But we find a way." Lyra studied him closely. That was it, the spark she had sensed from the beginning. This human, fragile in appearance, carried within him a strength of mind and heart that her people rarely saw. When they returned to the clearing, Lyra's scanning device finished its analysis. It confirmed what she had suspected: humans were physically weaker. Yes. But their mental resilience, creativity, and emotional depth were extraordinary. Lyra felt a mix of curiosity and respect. This human, Elias, was not just a visitor. He was a challenge to everything she thought she knew about life beyond Ziller, and she realized quietly but firmly that he might change her perspective forever as the twin suns set behind the crystal mountains. Casting long shadows across the glowing forests, Lyra and Elias sat together. "Studying the stars, you are different," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. "I don't know about that," Elias replied. "I'm just human." Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the colors of the setting suns. "Perhaps, but sometimes humans are more than they know. And sometimes that is enough to change worlds." For the first time, Lyra understood that meeting Elias was not just an encounter, it was the beginning of something extraordinary. And as night fell over Ziller, she could not help but feel that her life, and perhaps her planet, would never be the same again. The morning sun rose over the crystal mountains of Zilar, casting long beams of golden light across the glowing forests. Lyra awoke before Elias, her thoughts restless. The human was extraordinary, fragile yet unafraid, ordinary yet different in ways she could not fully understand. Today, she would test his abilities, though she did not want to frighten him. "Elias," she said, when he emerged from the spacecraft. "Stretching under the alien sky, today, I will show you more of Ziller. It is not always safe. You must follow my instructions carefully." Elias nodded, his dark eyes calm. "I am ready." Lyra felt a small thrill. Most visitors from other planets were frightened by the forests, the wildlife, and the unpredictable energy currents that moved across Ziller's plains. Humans, however, seemed to thrive on the unknown. Perhaps that was part of their nature, the ability to face danger without panicking. To adapt without fear, they left the landing site and entered the glowing forest. The trees towering above them like translucent towers, their branches emitted soft pulses of light, reacting to movement and energy in the air. Lyra moved gracefully, her limbs coordinated and efficient. Elias followed, slower but attentive. Every time he stepped, he adjusted to the forest floor, avoiding roots and glowing fungi. Lyra was impressed. Many species would stumble, would slow, or panic. Elias did none of those things. His movements were careful, yet confident. His mind calculated possibilities without hesitation. She began to wonder perhaps humans were not weaker. Perhaps they were simply different. A soft rustle interrupted her thoughts. Lyra froze, her senses alert. A creature appeared from between the trees, a small predator, its 6 legs moving quickly over the glowing ground. Its body shimmered like liquid crystal, and its eyes glowed with a sharp green light. Lyra raised her hand, signaling Elias to stay calm. "Do not panic," she whispered. "Observe it first. Humans often act differently when they are afraid. You must think before you act." Elias studied the creature. "It looks like it will attack," he said softly. "But if we stay calm, maybe it will leave." Lyra smiled faintly. The human's intuition surprised her. Most aliens would have attacked immediately, relying on speed and strength. Elias considered the situation. Instead of reacting with instinct alone, the predator growled, its multiple jaws opening. It lunged toward them. Lyra leapt to the side, her legs moving with lightning speed. Elias stumbled for a moment but caught himself. Then, slowly, he picked up a glowing branch that had fallen from a tree. Lyra watched in disbelief. Instead of fleeing, he placed the branch in a narrow gap between 2 rocks. When the creature attacked again, it tripped over the branch, tumbling forward in surprise. Elias motioned for Lyra to move, and together, they continued deeper into the forest. "Used strategy, not force," Lyra said, her voice filled with amazement. "That is unusual," Elias shrugged. "We do what we can to survive. Sometimes brains matter more than brawn." Lyra felt her respect for him grow. Humans were indeed fragile in body, but their minds and instincts were remarkable. Perhaps it was these differences that allowed them to survive in places where stronger species might fail. Hours passed as they moved deeper into Ziller's forest. The air became denser with energy currents, which caused strange vibrations in Lyra's equipment. Most visitors would struggle to maintain their balance or lose control of devices. Elias, however, adapted. He slowed his steps, adjusting his posture, and moved with careful precision. "You are learning quickly," Lyra said, her voice almost approving. "I have too," Elias replied simply. "If I don't, I might not survive." As they reached a narrow valley between crystal cliffs, Lyra paused. The ground ahead was unstable. Crystals jutted from the earth at odd angles. A sudden misstep could send them falling into the glowing river below. "Stay close," Lyra warned. "One mistake, and we could be trapped." Elias nodded, his eyes scanning the terrain. He stepped carefully, testing each crystal before placing his weight on it. Lyra moved beside him, impressed by his careful observation, halfway across. The crystals beneath Elias shifted unexpectedly. For a heartbeat, he lost balance, but then he adjusted, using his arms to stabilize himself. Lyra felt a spark of admiration. Most creatures would have panicked and fallen. Elias did not. He adapted. "You are not afraid," Lyra said softly. I am, he admitted. But fear does not stop me from moving forward. The simplicity of his words struck her. Courage did not mean the absence of fear. It meant acting despite fear. Humans understood this instinctively. Lyra realized that this quality, combined with ingenuity, made humans formidable in ways her people had never considered. Once they crossed the valley safely, the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the crystalline cliffs. Lyra led Elias to a small plateau overlooking the forest. From this height, she could see the vast plains beyond, filled with alien wildlife and glimmering rivers. Most humans would be exhausted by now, she said. You are different. You are strong in ways I cannot measure. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe humans survive because we have no choice. We face what comes, one step at a time. Lyra thought about that. Her species had technology, strength, and natural instincts, but sometimes those gifts made them rigid. Humans were flexible, creative, and unafraid to challenge the unknown. That was their true strength. A sudden roar echoed across the plains, sharper and louder than any sound they had heard before. A massive predator emerged, its body larger than any tree. Its scales reflected the fading sunlight, and its multiple limbs moved with terrifying speed. Lyra's first instinct was to prepare for combat. Elias did not flinch. He studied the creature, then looked at her. We can't fight it head-on. There must be another way. Lyra's brow furrowed. Humans rarely avoided confrontation. Most would have run or panicked. But Elias was calm, assessing the environment, calculating possibilities. He noticed a cluster of glowing crystals near the cliff edge. Carefully, he gestured to Lyra. We can use those, he said. If we lure it toward the crystals, its weight might make it stumble. Lyra's respect deepened. Human ingenuity. She had underestimated it. Together, they maneuvered toward the cliff, Elias guiding the predator with subtle movements and noises. The massive creature followed, its glowing eyes fixed on them. At the right moment, Elias triggered the crystal's energy currents, creating a barrier of light and vibration. The predator stumbled, losing its balance, and fell into the river below with a thunderous splash. Lyra exhaled slowly. You saved us. Without fighting. Elias shook his head. We survived, yes. But survival is not about strength. It is about thinking, adapting, and staying calm. Lyra felt a new understanding growing within her. Humans might be weak physically, but they were strong in ways that truly mattered. They combined courage, intelligence, and empathy in a way her people rarely did. As night fell, the two sat together on the plateau, looking at the stars above Ziller, the twin moons reflected in the glowing rivers below. Painting the landscape with silver light, you are extraordinary, Lyra said softly. I am just human, Elias replied. Lyra smiled, knowing he underestimated himself. Humans were not just anything. They were resilient, inventive, and brave. And this one human Elias was proving it with every step he took on her planet. Tomorrow, she said quietly, we will go further. There are places here that even my people avoid. You may not survive easily, but you may learn more than anyone ever has about Ziller. Elias nodded, looking up at the stars. I want to learn. I want to survive. And I want to understand this world. And you. Lyra felt a spark of curiosity and respect. Perhaps this human was not merely a visitor. Perhaps he was a force that could change the way her people saw the universe. And as they watched the twin moons rise together, she realized that their journey had only just begun. For Lyra and for Elias, Ziller was no longer just a planet. It was a test, a challenge that would reveal the hidden strengths of humanity, and perhaps the hidden truths of herself as well. The next morning, Lyra awoke to a quiet hum that ran through Ziller's air. She stretched and glanced at Elias, who was already up, inspecting the strange crystalline forest around their campsite. The human's curiosity amazed her. He did not just survive. He observed, questioned, and learned, as if the planet itself was a puzzle meant for his mind to solve. Are you ready? Lyra asked. Elias looked up from a small device he had picked up from the ground. Yes, I want to see more. I want to understand Ziller. Lyra nodded, impressed by his determination. Most beings, when faced with danger and the unknown, would hesitate. Elias never wavered. Perhaps that was why she sensed something extraordinary in him from the start. But today was different. Today, the test would not come from the forests or the creatures that roamed them. The test would come from her own people. The Alien Council had convened a meeting. The presence of a human on Zillar was unprecedented, and the council was divided. Some saw Elias as a harmless visitor, an opportunity to study a strange species. Others saw him as a threat. Fragile, yes, but unpredictable, with unknown capabilities. Lyra had been warned. Do not bring him before the council, the head elder had said. They may decide to capture him for study, or worse. Lyra, however, had made her choice. Elias was not just a visitor. He was an example of something her people rarely understood, strength beyond physical power. And she wanted the council to see it too. As they approached the council chamber, Elias's eyes widened. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towers of glowing crystal rising toward the sky. Energy currents pulsing along the walls. Lyra's people moved with grace and precision, their every motion deliberate and controlled. Stay calm, Lyra whispered. The council may test you. Do not react hastily, the ass nodded, his dark eyes steady. I understand. Inside the chamber, the council members awaited. Their forms were elegant, their expressions unreadable. Lyra stepped forward. This is Elias, she said. He is human. I ask you to observe him before judging him, the council murmured among themselves. One elder, tall and sharp-eyed, stepped forward. A human. Weak, fragile, inexperienced. Why should we allow him to walk our planet? Lyra's voice was firm. Because he is not just weak. He is different. His mind is quick, his instincts sharp. He adapts in ways our people cannot predict. Elias stepped forward, meeting the council's gaze. I mean no harm, he said simply. I only wish to survive and learn about your world. The council was silent for a long moment, studying him. Then the elder spoke again. Words are easy. Actions reveal truth. We will test you, human. Prove that you deserve to walk freely on Zillar. Lyra's heart sank. She had expected the council to be skeptical, but she knew Elias could face this. Humans had a strange ability to remain calm and creative under pressure. The test began immediately. The council transported them to a controlled environmenta, simulated terrain that combined the dangers of Zillar's forests with unpredictable energy currents. Holographic predators appeared, and the ground shifted beneath their feet. Most aliens would have relied on strength and technology to navigate it. Elias had neither. Lyra watched closely. He paused, analyzing the terrain and the creatures. His mind worked quickly, devising strategies and anticipating danger. He moved carefully, but deliberately, avoiding the holographic predators with a combination of speed and intelligence. One predator lunged at Lyra before she could react. Elias pushed a small crystal into the path, causing the predator to stumble. Then he signaled her to move toward a safer path. The council observed in silence, their expressions unreadable. But Lyra noticed the subtle shifts, the narrowing of eyes, the slight inclinations of heads. Elias's actions were changing their perception. Impressive, the elder muttered. Almost reluctantly, Elias continued to navigate the simulated dangers, combining observation, intuition, and creativity. He did not rely on brute force or advanced technology. Instead, he used his environment, his mind, and his instincts. Every action demonstrated a quality that the council rarely valued: adaptability. Lyra felt a surge of pride. Humans were underestimated, not because they were weak, but because their strengths were different. Elias was showing that clearly. The test reached its climax when a simulated energy storm threatened to trap them. Most would panic. Some would attempt to flee blindly. Elias studied the currents, noticing patterns that even Lyra had not considered. He guided them to a series of natural barriers that protected them. From the storm's full force, the council gasped at his ingenuity. One elder whispered, He survived because he thought, not because he fought. Lyra nodded. Exactly. That is what I have been trying to show you. Lias turned to her, a small smile on his face. I am learning. And I think I am starting to understand Ziller, but also I am learning about you. Lyra felt her pulse quicken. The human's ability to adapt, to survive, and to observe with clarity was remarkable. But there was something more. He did not act for himself alone. He considered her safety, the safety of the creatures around them, and even the unpredictable terrain. His strength was not just in his mind, but in his heart. The council remained quiet, their previous skepticism waning. They had come to test a human in expected weakness. But they found something they did not anticipate: resilience, intelligence, and empathy in combination. Finally, the head elder spoke. It seems humans are not as weak as we thought. This one has qualities that our species rarely possesses. Lyra exhaled, relieved. She had hoped the council would see what she saw, but hearing it confirmed was satisfying. Your people underestimate you, she said softly to Elias. But now they are beginning to understand. Elias shook his head slightly. I am just doing what I can. That is all? No, Lyra replied. You are showing them that strength comes in many forms. And that is extraordinary. The council concluded the test, allowing Elias to continue exploring Ziller with Lyra as his guide. Their actions over the past day had begun to shift perceptions. Humans were fragile in body, yes, but resilient in mind and heart. That combination was rare. It could change how Lyra's people interacted with the universe. As they left the council chamber, Elias looked thoughtful. Do they always judge so quickly? He asked. Lyra smiled faintly. Most species judge by appearances or strength. Humans are unusual. They must learn to see differently to understand you. Elias nodded. Then I will keep showing them. Their journey continued across the planet, deeper into forests and valleys, where energy currents were stronger and creatures more unpredictable. Each obstacle revealed more of Elias's capabilities, creativity, courage, and compassion. Lyra began to see that humans did not just survive, they inspired. That night, as they camped beneath the glowing trees, Elias turned to Lyra. Do you think your people will ever fully understand humans? Lyra considered the question. Perhaps not fully. But one human, one extraordinary human, can begin to change minds. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the twin moons above. And that human might just be you. Leah smiled, quietly humbled. He had never thought of himself as extraordinary. Yet here, on an alien world, he had survived tests designed to challenge even the most advanced species. He had adapted, improvised, and shown courage beyond expectation. Lyra felt a growing sense of anticipation. Their journey was far from over. The challenges of Ziller were only beginning, and she knew the human beside her would continue to surprise, teach, and inspire not just her, but perhaps her entire species. And as the stars shimmered above the crystal canopy, Lyra realized something profound. Humanity's true strength was not in its power, but in its mind and heart. And in Elias, that strength shone brighter than she had ever imagined. The morning sun barely pierced through the thick, glowing canopy of Ziller's forest. Lyra woke to the sound of wind whispering through the crystal leaves and the distant calls of unknown creatures. Beside her, Elias was already awake, carefully examining a map of the terrain they had covered so far. Another long day ahead, Lyra said, stretching. I hope you are ready. Elias looked up, eyes steady and curious. I am. I want to see everything Zillar has to offer. Lyra smiled faintly. Humans had a way of seeing the world that her species rarely appreciated. They noticed small details, patterns, and possibilities that often went unseen by more advanced minds. Elias's curiosity was unrelenting, and she admired it. As they moved deeper into the forest, the air began to shift. The subtle energy currents that ran through Ziller's terrain grew stronger. Lyra frowned. Such strong currents usually meant something unusual, dangerous, or at least unpredictable. Stay close, she warned. The currents are stronger here. They can disrupt devices and even disorient most species. Elias nodded, adjusting his pace to match hers. He walked carefully, observing the glowing ground, the movement of the trees, and the way energy rippled across the landscape. Hours passed. The forest gradually opened into a wide valley. In the center, a massive, crystalline structure rose from the ground like a jagged mountain. Its surface shimmered, refracting light from Ziller's twin suns. And energy pulses ran along its surface, sending faint vibrations across the valley. Lyra's breath caught. "This is unusual," she said. "No human, or most aliens, has ever ventured here. The energy currents are unstable. Even my people avoid this place." Leah stepped closer, eyes wide. "Why do you avoid it?" "Because it is unpredictable. The energy can change the landscape in moments. Rocks can shift, creatures can appear suddenly, and storms can form without warning. Many have tried to study it and failed," Lyra explained. Elias looked determined, not intimidated. "Then let's see if we can succeed." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Humans were fragile compared to most Xylarian species, yet Elias had already proven himself resourceful, clever, and brave. If anyone could face the challenges ahead, it would be him. As they approached the base of the crystal mountain, the ground trembled. Small shards of crystal shifted beneath their feet, forming jagged spikes. The energy pulses became stronger, causing sparks to arc between the crystals. "Careful," Lyra shouted, leaping over a sudden fissure in the ground. Elias followed, moving carefully, but with surprising agility. Suddenly, the air grew thick, charged with electricity. A loud crack echoed through the valley, and a massive energy storm erupted from the crystal mountain. Pulses of blue and white lightning shot in all directions. Striking the ground and sending vibrations through the earth, Lyra's first instinct was to use her speed and strength to dodge the storm and guide Elias to safety. But she realized he did not panic. Instead, he studied the storm, noting its patterns, the timing of the pulses, and the areas of relative safety. "You're calm?" Lyra shouted over the roar of the storm. "Most would panic here." "I have to think," Elias replied. "Panicking won't help us survive." Lyra felt a spark of admiration. Humans were fragile, yes, but their minds when focused were extraordinary. Elias quickly identified the safest path, using the energy pulse's rhythm to guide their movements. He also noticed that certain crystal formations amplified the energy, but also contained it. "Follow me," he said, pointing to a cluster of crystals forming a natural barrier. "We can use these to shield ourselves temporarily." Together, they moved swiftly but cautiously, dodging pulses of energy and unstable ground. At one point, a shard of crystal fell near Elias, narrowly missing him. Without hesitation, he used a nearby fallen branch to redirect it. Keeping both of them safe, Lyra realized that this was the human strength she had sensed from the beginning, not in physical power, but in creativity, observation, and courage under pressure. Ilias's mind worked quickly, combining logic with instinct in ways even advanced aliens rarely mastered. Halfway up the mountain, the storm intensified. The air crackled with energy, making it difficult to breathe and move. Lyra's limbs were strong, but even she struggled against the force. Elias, however, remained focused. He calculated their next steps, identifying safe footholds, and guiding Lyra along the treacherous terrain. A massive crystal shard suddenly cracked, threatening to fall on them. Elias acted instantly, pulling Lyra out of the way and using a small energy field from his device to deflect the shard. Lyra's heart pounded in shock and admiration. You saved us again," she said. Elias shook his head. "We survived together. I only do what I must." Lyra realized that his humility was part of what made him remarkable. He did not boast of his courage or intelligence, yet his actions spoke louder than any words. Humans, she thought, were extraordinary precisely because they could inspire, adapt, and act without expecting recognition. The storm began to shift, moving toward the peak of the crystal mountain. Lyra and Elias reached a ledge that offered a clear view of the summit. Energy currents crackled along the surface, forming dangerous paths that could either lead to safety or destruction. We must move quickly, Lyra said. The storm will trap us if we hesitate. Elias studied the currents, analyzing their rhythm and intensity. We can create a path, he said. If we use the natural formations, we can guide the energy away from us.
Lyra blinked in surprise.
He was not just surviving. He was solving a problem the way a master strategist would. Together they began manipulating smaller crystals, adjusting their positions to channel the energy pulses safely along the mountain slopes. The process was exhausting. Sparks flew, rocks shifted, and the storm roared above them. But Elias's determination never wavered. Lyra followed his lead, using her strength and agility to complement his ingenuity. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the summit. The storm's intensity lessened, redirected by the clever arrangement of crystals. The valley below was safe, the energy pulses dissipating harmlessly into the air. Lyra stood beside Elias, catching her breath. I did not think it possible, she admitted. Even my people would struggle to manage this. Elias smiled faintly, his dark eyes calm despite the exhaustion. We adapted. We worked together. That is how humans survive and succeed. Lyra looked at him with newfound respect. He was not just human. He was clever, brave, and creative in ways that challenged everything she had learned about strength and survival. As the twin suns set, painting the crystal peaks with gold and violet light, Lyra and Elias sat together at the summit. Below them, Zealer's forests glimmered, the rivers reflecting the fading light, and the energy currents pulsed softly, now peaceful. You have changed how I see humans, Lyra admitted. They are fragile, yes, but their minds, their hearts, are stronger than most species give them credit for. Elias shook his head, smiling. I am only one human. But if I can survive here, perhaps your people will begin to see that humans are not what they expected. Lyra felt a thrill of anticipation. The challenges of Ziller were only beginning, but with Elias by her side, she knew that humans could face the unimaginable. His courage, ingenuity, and empathy had already proven that strength came in many forms, and sometimes it came in forms her people had never imagined. Tomorrow, Lyra said softly, looking out at the glowing forests, we will explore further. There is more to Ziller than the mountains and the storms, and there is more for you to show us, more for humans to prove. Elias nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. I am ready. Whatever comes, we will face it together. Lyra felt a spark of excitement. Humanity was extraordinary, she realized. Not in raw power, not in technology alone, but in courage, creativity, and the willingness to act when others might hesitate. Elias embodied all of that. And she knew that Zilleran, perhaps even the galaxy, would never be the same because of him. As night fell, the twin moons rose over the crystal peaks, their reflections shimmering in the valleys below. Lyra and Elias sat in quiet companionship, knowing that the greatest challenges were still ahead and that together they could face anything. The morning light spread across the glowing forests of Zillar, illuminating the crystal peaks and shimmering rivers below. Lyra stood on the ridge, her eyes scanning the horizon. Elias was beside her, examining the strange flora and unusual energy currents that twisted through the valley. Today, Lyra said quietly, we must return to the council. They will want to see what we have discovered and what you have accomplished. Elias nodded, his calm demeanor unchanged despite the challenges they had faced over the past days. I am ready. I hope they understand.
Lyra smiled.
They will. They have begun to see what I have always known, that humans are not simply fragile creatures. They are strong in ways that matter most. As they approached the council chamber, Elias felt the tension in the air. The chamber, made of crystal towers and glowing conduits, seemed smaller now, more confining than before. The council members waited, their expressions unreadable. The head elder spoke first. Lyra has returned with the human. We have seen much of Ziller through your actions, Elias. The tests were designed to challenge the strongest and the most intelligent among us. You have succeeded. Explain yourself. Elias stepped forward. I did what I had to do to survive. And I did it alongside Lyra, learning from her and adapting to Ziller. I am not strong like your people in body, but I use my mind, my observations, and my courage to face challenges. That is how humans survive." The council members murmured among themselves, astonished. One elder, who had doubted Elias the most, stepped forward. "We expected weakness. Instead, we witnessed intelligence, strategy, and courage beyond what many of our species could achieve. You have changed our understanding." Lyra watched, pride swelling in her chest. She had seen it all. Along humans were extraordinary in ways her people rarely considered. Elias had shown creativity, resourcefulness, and heart in every test. His actions had saved both their lives and proven that strength was not always physical. The council spoke at length, debating and reconsidering their perceptions. "Perhaps we have judged too quickly," said one elder. "Perhaps humans have abilities that we have overlooked, not in strength or speed, but in resilience and ingenuity." Elias listened quietly, his calm and humility making his point stronger than any words. Humans were not boastful. They acted, survived, and inspired. The council's respect was growing, slowly but surely. Finally, the head elder addressed them. "Elias, you have survived the dangers of Ziller, adapted to its energy currents, and demonstrated courage and wisdom. You are no longer just a visitor. You are an example of your species. From this day forward, humans will be recognized not for weakness, but for their resilience and ingenuity." Lyra's eyes glistened with pride. She had hoped this moment would come, but seeing it confirmed was more powerful than she could have imagined. She turned to Elias, who looked both humbled and thoughtful. "Do you understand now?" she asked softly. "Your people are extraordinary, and you, Elias, are proof." Elias shook his head slightly, a small smile on his face. "I am just one human. But if I can show what we can do, perhaps your people will see humans differently in the future." Lyra nodded. "They will. And more than that, you have changed the way I see humans, myself, and even my own people. Strength is not only in the body, but in mind, courage, and heart." The council concluded the meeting, officially recognizing Elias's accomplishments and the potential of his species. Humans would no longer be dismissed as fragile. They would be respected as a species capable of creativity, courage, and resilience. After the meeting, Lyra and Elias stepped outside into the glowing forest. The sun reflected off the crystal trees, painting the air with shimmering colors. Birds of light flew overhead. Distant waterfalls sparkled in the morning mist. "You have made history here," Lyra said, her voice soft. "Not just for humans, but for Ziller. You have shown us a new way to understand strength and survival." Elias looked thoughtful. "I did what I could, but this is only the beginning. Humans can do more if given the chance." Lyra smiled. "And I will be here to see it. Perhaps one day we can explore not just Ziller, but the stars together." Elisa's eyes lit up. "The stars? I would like that very much." Together they walked through the forest, each step a symbol of the journey they had taken. The path had been dangerous, filled with challenges and tests, but they had overcome them. They had faced storms, predators, and doubts, and emerged stronger, wiser, more connected than ever. That night, under the twin moons of Ziller, Lyra and Elias sat beside a glowing river. The water reflected their faces, the moons, and the shimmering trees around them. It was quiet, peaceful, and full of possibility. "You know," Lyra said, breaking the silence, "humans often underestimate themselves. You think you are weak, fragile, or ordinary. But that is not true. You are extraordinary in ways you may never fully realize." Elias looked at her, his dark eyes thoughtful. "I have never thought of myself that way. But perhaps. Facing Ziller has shown me a different truth." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth she could not fully explain. "Yes, and not just you, but all humans. Courage, intelligence, and heart, these are strengths that surpass even physical power, and you have shown them to us." Elias remained silent for a moment, reflecting on the journey. He had faced dangers he could never have imagined, adapted to a world entirely unlike his own, and earned the respect of an alien species. And yet he felt humility. Humans were resilient, yes, but they were also learning, growing, discovering who they truly were. "You have taught me too," he said finally. "I see now that strength is not only in muscle or technology, but in the choices we make, the risks we take, and the courage we show. Humans survive because we are willing to think, adapt, and act, even when fear is present." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the shimmering light of Ziller's forests. "And that is why you are not just human. You are extraordinary. And perhaps one day your species will teach the galaxy the same lesson." The next morning, as the suns rose over Ziller, Lyra and Elias prepared to continue their journey. Though the Council had acknowledged the strength of humanity, there was still much to explore. The planet was vast, its secrets countless. And the bond between human and alien had only begun to grow as they set out. Lyra glanced at Elias. "Do you know what I see when I look into your eyes?" she asked softly. Elias looked at her curiously. "What do you see?" "I see someone who is brave, clever, and kind. Someone who is more than appearances. Someone who proves that humans are capable of extraordinary things. And someone who will change the way my people see the universe." Elias smiled, a mixture of humility and pride. "Then perhaps the journey is just beginning for both of us." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and together we can face whatever comes next." As they walked, the twin suns rose higher, bathing the forests in golden light. Birds of light soared through the air, rivers shimmered like liquid glass, and the energy currents hummed softly in the crystal trees. Zillar was alive, vibrant, and full of challenges, yet also full of possibility. Humans, Lyra realized, had a strength that could change worlds. Not through force or dominance, but through courage, creativity, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Elias had shown her that, and as they disappeared into the glowing forests, the twin moons reflecting in distant rivers, Lyra knew one truth above all: humanity was not ordinary. Humans were extraordinary, and one human in particular had proven it, Captain Elias, who faced the unknown with courage, intelligence, and heart. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The story of Elias and Lyra was not just a story of survival. It was a story of understanding, respect, and the extraordinary power of a species often underestimated. And it was only the beginning of the adventures to come.